There are tons of insane Minecraft facts that help you not only become a better player, but also discover more about the game, and in this video I'll show you 20 of them. If you're part of a team in Minecraft, which often applies to many multiplayer servers, this will make your name turn a different color if the team is associated with a specific color. So for instance, I'm part of a team that I've added the attribute of red to. However, what is very interesting is if you get the spectral, also known as glowing effect, by getting hit with a spectral arrow, you'll notice that the outline around us is not the normal sort of yellowish white, it's actually the color that corresponds to our team color. And so you can see right here that I was glowing with a red outline there for a second. This doesn't seem like a big effect when it is daytime, but when it is nighttime, that glow is actually quite bright, and also the further away you are from something, the outline actually stays the same, and so it's very easy to pick out players with this outline, especially if it's colored by a team. If you've just defeated the Wither, and the Nether star drops from the Wither onto the ground, this item floating on the ground, whether you pick it up and throw it down again, or if it just dropped from the Wither, has effects that only it and no other floating item has. The first one is if we light an explosion next to it, other items will be destroyed, but the Wither dropped Nether star will not. This item cannot be destroyed by explosions. The second thing is, instead of the standard 5 minutes items usually take to despawn, the Nether star will actually take 10 minutes to despawn, and in Bedrock Edition it literally cannot despawn as an item. And of course all of this is so that you do not lose the Nether star when fighting the Wither, and so next time you're getting a Nether star, you'll know why this item does not get destroyed by those explosions. Cocoa beans are an item that you probably do not give much thought to, and I'm sure you would not expect to find them in a dungeon chest. However, this used to be the only place to get cocoa beans. Before the jungle biome was added to the game, cocoa beans were definitely the rarest dye item, because they could only be found in the occasional chest at mob spawners around your world. Especially on some old console worlds, with the number of dungeons being very limited, having cocoa beans was in most cases actually more impressive than having diamond blocks. And so whenever you dye things brown next, you'll know that this dye, now something very common, used to be the rarest in the game. Minecraft 1.19 added the Mangrove swamp into the game. However, the mangrove roots have a specific feature you probably do not know about. That's the fact that standard mangrove roots cannot be placed like a log, in the sense that the top and side textures will always be facing the top and the side. Whereas with a log, let's say you could place them like this with the top on the side. Well, the muddy mangrove roots, which is simply the mangrove roots with mud in them, is actually able to be placed sideways. You can tell right here when I placed it, these are now going sideways and the top texture is on the side. And I have literally no idea why mud logging a mangrove root would make it be able to do this, but it does, and so next time you're building with the mangrove root or the muddy mangrove root, remember that you can have that added function to the muddy mangrove roots if you feel like maybe having this texture be sideways. And hopefully they'll add some parity to this soon so that the normal mangrove roots can also be placed sideways. Cactuses have been in the game for a long time, and they're basically the only item that is unique to the desert biome. However, there is a secret texture on the cactus, and you can sometimes see it when breaking it, but where you can really see it is if you put an item frame on the side of something, put a cactus in it, and if you look up, you can see the top of this. There's sort of like an interior log texture right there, with sort of the more plant-like cactus inside, with the standard cactus being like a bark. It reminds me a lot of the log textures. If you have a really tall cactus and you break the bottom block and look up, sometimes you can see that upper texture. Also as an item, if you throw them up in the air, you can see that texture, but 99% of the time this cactus texture just is not visible. Very interesting, however, as you would assume they would just be green on all sides. You likely think of redstone as something that involves, well, redstone. Certainly not something that can be converted through large chains of blocks, or even underwater. However, with leaves and measuring the block state of leaves, that can be super simple. All you have to do is have a piston connected up to a log, and that log touching a series of leaves up to 6 leaf blocks away from the log. And basically, when we move this log, you'll notice that those lamps turn on. The reason why? The distance that these leaves are from touching a chain of leaves and a log will affect its block state, and so when we change the block state, it'll update through all of these, be sensed by the observer, and turn on that lantern. And so because of that, you could even have chains of redstone going up through here, and you could have a series of these sort of going, like, let's say this would touch another piston, you could have a massive chain of leaf redstone, but you can even make a trap out of this. Let's say you want an unsuspecting leaf trap. simply have an area where people would break some leaves, and when they do break that, it will change the block state, and then this lamp will turn on, and that could of course be connected to TNT or whatever else you want. But overall, leaf redstone is definitely a cool way of utilizing the function of leaves and observers. This is an abandoned village, also known as a zombie or zombified village. You may not have even seen these before in the game. Only 2% of villages spawn as abandoned villages. But whether you knew about this structure or not, something you probably did not know is that every single window inside of an abandoned village is brown. The reason for this is the idea would be that because the villagers are zombies, they would not be able to clean the dirt off the windows, and so they slowly got dirty, and if no windows are broken, at very least they would have turned brown. And so because of that, next time you see one of these, you'll notice this subtle change is something to add some realisticness, and to show that these villages are not being taken care of. And of course the moss and the spider web show this as well. If you've ever been to a sunflower plains, something you might have noticed is that all the sunflowers point the same direction. They don't actually point towards the sun, although it would be kind of interesting if their face moved towards the direction that the sun is in, but they do not. But what they do always face is east, so no matter what biome you are in, Bedrock or Java Edition, any version since these were added, these sunflower faces will always be east. The reason is that in real life the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west, although of course that does depend on where you are, the time of year, things like that. But what's nice about this is that in Bedrock Edition, because there's no way of seeing the direction that you're facing in the F3 menu, you can use these to find out what direction something is, because if this is east, then you can just count up as it being east, south, west, and then north. So sunflowers really function as a true compass. Minecraft 1.18 of course changed a lot about world generation, but there's something that they flat out removed you might not have noticed. Of course there are these occasional lava pools that you sometimes see generating around your world. And if I asked you is there a water counterpart of these, I'm sure you would say yes. As of course you will sometimes see these sort of small water pools as well that will generate somewhat exposed in maybe a plains biome or off the side of a hill. However, believe it or not, those have actually been fully removed, and this is a lot more of a change than you'd think. The idea behind removing these is that we now have the aquifer caves. However, the aquifer caves only generate near water level. They do not generate very, very high up or very, very low down. And so because of that, the only way of getting water on a high up mountain outside of some bits of ice is on certain mountains. Of course, there is still the generation of having a singular water block or singular lava blocks spawn in on the side of a hill. But in terms of those nice small water lakes, those are unfortunately gone forever, and you'll never find a nice little mountaintop lake in Minecraft again. Speaking of liquids, there are 4 types of cauldrons. There's of course the empty cauldron, there is the powdered snow cauldron, the lava cauldron, and the water cauldron. However, something you may not know is that the particles when breaking a cauldron change, depending on what's inside of it. So for the standard cauldron, we get cauldron colored particles. For the snow cauldron, we also get cauldron colored particles, and even same for the lava cauldron. However, the water cauldron is different. If we break the water cauldron, you'll see the particles there are actually blue. And you can see that again, these are gray, these are blue. It's interesting it's the only type of cauldron that gets its own special particle, but still cool. If you're breaking a water cauldron, you'll see that little Easter egg. Iron golems are known as being village protectors, but are they really that good at their job? You see, if a villager is zombified, even right after it's turned into a zombie, that iron golem will instantly kill the zombie villager, which I think is kind of too bad. I think it'd be cool if the iron golem had the ability to tell the difference between the villager and the zombie villager, but still apparently the iron golems are not very good at that, and so something can actually happen if you do not sleep at night, is your villagers will be killed but not by the zombies, they'll actually just be killed after they're zombified by the iron golem trying to protect the village. And so really, does this iron golem do a good job after all? Now I'm sure you know about horses, and probably skeleton horses. But if there's a skeleton horse, what about the zombie horse? That's right, there is a zombie horse in Minecraft. However, you cannot get it in survival without cheats. And so I've summoned this zombie horse in. The texture is quite interesting, sort of like the zombie with the black eyes and with some of the ribs showing. However, this horse is just not able to be obtained in survival. When the horse model was changed a while ago, you can see the horse model of the zombie horse was as well. And so it's maintained updated for a while, but it is kind of odd just to see this strange type of horse. Hopefully one day they will add it to the game. And just as the skeleton horse can drop bones if it's killed, the zombie horse can drop rotten flesh if it's killed. And it is cool to have these variants. Maybe one day in the future there'll be zombies that can target horses, and then you'll have to be more careful with those and you could get the zombie horse. Definitely an interesting mob variant, but I think I'll just stick to taming horses for now. You can plant saplings on a lot of things, but did you know you can even plant them on farmland? That's right. Even though farmland is not a full-sized block, it has 1 pixel lower than normal blocks, you can plant saplings on top of it. In fact, looking at them at eye level, you can sort of see that they are floating above that block, and so it's very strange to see these saplings just sitting there. We can even bone meal them, they'll grow, but of course when they grow you can see that turning into a full-sized dirt block. And so although it is very strange to see these saplings floating above the farmland, I have no idea why you're able to do that, especially since it's so glitched. That is an interesting thing to try if you want sort of a glitched looking item in your world, and you can see right there that those saplings are just floating. But they do work normally on the farmland if you ever want to make a unique looking tree farm. If I asked you what a rare item in Minecraft is, you'd probably say maybe a disc fragment, golden apples, or a special enchanted book. But something rarer than all of these items is actually tall grass. They might be saying, well, how is tall grass rare? It's pretty common, but the actual tall grass item is completely unobtainable in survival, except through one way, through village loot chests. Now there is the tall grass item, there's also the tall fern item. Tall ferns can be found through taiga village chests, but we are surrounded by grass and tall grass, so again, how can this really be rare? Well, if you break a standard grass, you get a grass item, that of course is not rare. However, if you break a 2 tall grass, you actually just get 2 grass item. You do not get the tall grass no matter how you break them, whether you have silk touch or anything else. And so because of that, the only way to achieve this rare block is through finding them very, very rarely in village chests. I've seen a lot of players throw away this block thinking it's useless, and it is useless, although when you place it down it does automatically make a 2 tall grass, because you do not actually have to bone meal the 1 tall grass to get it. And so next time you find this, just remember this is one of the rarest items in the game, and one that you would not think is actually hard to get. Did you know that there are light bulbs in Minecraft? And no, I'm not talking about the new frog lights, glowstone, or the sea lantern. Actually, it's this. It's literal light bulbs in Minecraft. Now these items are unfortunately not obtainable in survival. They're only able to be found through commands, and you can't even see where they are once you place them down, other than a ghostly hitbox. But this is actually a light bulb, and it's actually in the game. These do provide the light level shown on them. You can summon them in at any point from 0 to 15. All you have to do is /give your player name, light, and that will show you this item. And so it's for invisible lighting in creative builds, but still kind of weird for Minecraft, a game that's supposed to be medieval, to have 21st century light bulbs in it. Although really more like old style light bulbs, but still very cool. There's a rather strange type of vehicle you can make in survival Minecraft, and that is a reverse driving boat or minecart. Simply place down a boat at the corner junction of a minecart track, then place a minecart here and let it go by, picking up the boat. It'll only pick it up if it's at the corner there, otherwise it's rather difficult. Then when we go inside of here and we press forward, so I'm pressing W right now, we're actually going backwards. If I press S, which should be going backwards, we're going forwards. If I press A, which should turn to the left, we actually turn to the right. And if I press D, which should turn to the right, we turn to the left. And so I have no idea the functional use of this, but if you ever want to try out a reverse driving boat minecart combo that is sort of like a strangely driven vehicle, then you can do that really easily by combining these 2 items. It's very hard to get the hang of these controls, but it is interesting, and if you make your way back onto a rail, it'll attach onto there and then just run like a normal minecart. If you thought you knew it all about villages, here is something you probably did not know. There is a village leader, sort of like a village mayor, in every village. Now this mechanic is especially prominent in Bedrock Edition because it has to do with the way that iron farms work for some designs, but basically when a village is first made by the player or first generated into the world, the first villager that interacts with a bed becomes becomes the village leader. And this doesn't really affect anything, but what it does affect is it affects certain generation of iron golems, things like that in Bedrock, and that villager does work a little bit differently. And so next time you want to impress someone, tell them that you know that there is a leader in every village. Maybe it's this one, but there's actually no real way of telling once it's happened. Really only the good way of knowing is when you're first creating your village. You'll know that's the first villager that interacts with a bed, so maybe the first villager that you bring there. And of course if a villager dies, then a new one is picked as the leader. Now Minecraft is in no way a realistic game. However, something very interesting is that the way that you make blue dye is accurate to how blue dye was made in the medieval times, which is of course the time period that Minecraft is supposed to be in. And so way back in the Middle Ages, cornflowers and lapis lazuli were actually some of the methods that they would get blue dye from for dyeing things like books and potentially maps and things like that. And so next time you craft blue dye, remember this is actually how blue dye was crafted way back in the Middle Ages, and Minecraft is trying to historically replicate that. And I do like this little fact as it shows some of the accuracy and thought put into this game. For things like ferns or for grass or even tall grass, you can simply place a block inside of them instead of having to break them and then placing down the block secondarily. However, something interesting is that this little use does not extend to the water bucket. If you right click with your water bucket on the block you want to make it go over, it'll just place to the side. We can even use this to place water on top of grass items like that. In fact, sometimes when I'm placing water in a plains biome or a biome with a lot of grass, I'll by accidentally place it up on top of one of these, thinking it'll go through, and they'll get sort of a big waterfall shape out of it. And so I have no idea why you cannot place water on these blocks, but you can place dirt on top of them, instantly deleting them. But either way, next time you're placing with water, you'll know why the water's placing weird, as this block and side trick just does not work with liquids. If you're ever playing in creative mode, something very strange you might notice is that you cannot get hit by an arrow. But not just that you do not get damaged by it, it literally cannot land to hit you. You can see these arrows are sort of glitching on top of my eye there, and they're just sitting there shaking around because they have nowhere to land, and so their code is glitching out. This actually works similarly to the Endermen when they are trying to be hit by an arrow. And so if we have all these arrows on top of us and then we suddenly switch into survival, well, we'll get hit by one of them you can see and the rest just land on the ground. But I find this a very interesting functionality, and maybe next time you're in creative you could try messing around with these weird glitched arrows. Hope you enjoyed those 20 insane things you didn't know about Minecraft. I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day. Goodbye.